Good morning and welcome to March 29th. I am so glad that you're joining me here for this Ascension Journey Heroes spread. We are doing this. We are into Aries season now, and I hope that you're feeling the fire, that you're fueling your fire, and that life is treating you well this week so far. We're going to dive right in. So I would like to invite the angels, my guardian angels, my spirit guides, protectors, teachers, and their healing energy to this space. And I ask that it is a safe space that allows for the fullest expression of our light, humanity, and healing. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to pull from the Hero's Journey Dream Oracle by Kelly Sullivan Walden and Rasuli. And we are going to dive in here to take a look at what your awakening or ascension journey, your hero's journey is taking today and this week. There's always an arc at the end of these that I'm noticing, and through them. I did a couple, I recorded a few, and then didn't post them in time, but they too had a thread through them. So thank you so much, Spirit. It's always interesting to see that because it does feel like there is a communication taking place, right? So we have ally in disguise, discover the hard to find blessing. So it could be, I mean, that can be a tough card, right? That can be a little hard. Discover the hard to find blessing. You won the lottery. Make room for wonderment. Maybe wonder is the thing that will help you access that hidden blessing of something. And then attune to the call, tune in and turn on. Excellent energy here. This is very abstract. It's almost, I get this energy almost of an etherealness to it. Let me just let my cat in here. She likes to go on little adventures. Eva, come here. Oh, sorry about that. So this gives me this sort of almost air of earth. So there could be air or earth in your chart that's featuring prominently or pulling at you and getting your attention. So we're going to dive right into the actual journey that you're taking here. So Spirit, can you please clarify, in addition to these beautiful oracle cards, attune to the call. That's such a fascinating card to me. It's almost got elements of fire as well, like fire and earth. Like there's just something fiery to it. Something fiery. Spirit, can you please give me messages for my wonderful creative collective here on their ascension journey moving through this week, please? And thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so you're starting with the world. So I'm getting the feeling that you are learning some big lessons. There's some Saturn energy happening here too. So this could be a Saturn return that you're going through, Saturn return related lessons. You're not so sure about them. There may be things that you're holding on to that really do have to go. And it can just be an awareness, right? It doesn't always have to mean people. And I think that what will help you move through this Two of Swords energy is reaching for a sense of justice. So the reason why I say that is the scales on this, tattooed on this person here, right? The scales needing to balance. Thank you so much for further clarifying this spread for me, Spirit. Okay, that's a lot of cards, but we have the Five of Swords, which does not overly surprise me. Yeah, there, because of the energy that we had yesterday. Spirit, can you please further clarify this energy for my wonderful creative collective? Thank you so much. Oh, beautiful. I really like that card in that position. Okay, keep going. More Spirit for my creative collective to clarify their journey and the journey they're taking here. Wow. Wow. This is a big, this feels like a really big day. in the week. So this could be a day where you're having an epiphany, because this definitely reads like an aha moment to me. And I'll explain why. So we're starting with the world, which represents Saturn energy. And so Saturn in the houses is the 10th house, but it can also be the 11th house too. So 10th house is ruled by Capricorn, 11th is ruled by Aquarius. And I think that there's this sense of stepping through, like you're stepping into, I don't want to say a new world, but I'm getting that feeling of you feel lighter. There's an awareness that you have that's helping you integrate lessons, helping you to alchemize lessons. I think that this is such a big deal for you. And I think that there's a way that energy is flowing in and through that maybe it wasn't able to before. There may have been some blockages that you had to work through that you are working through or you have worked through. So this is great energy. So something I just thought of was the Ouroboros. So that snake that is sort of in the unending circle and tangle with itself is actually what is encircling this person in the world. So there's definite, I feel like there's some transformation energy in this. And obviously death is here. So death is here, death and rebirth to signify that. And then in this one, it has the magician's infinity symbol here. So I find that to be quite interesting too. So we'll get through all of this, but this is where you're starting. You're starting at a place of moving through something and having a new awareness, right? The world tends to represent some kind of ending or completion. But I think about it in this sense with going right into the Two of Swords as sort of the call from the universe, as you being pulled into an awareness and moving into the awareness that comes when you really start to process what you'd like to see and not see. And not just in terms of literal events or things happening in your life, but what is it that you're willfully unaware of, right? We can be super unaware of things happening in our life because we just don't want to see it, because it's so much more convenient if we don't. And I think that this being in the call from the universe position is inviting you to see what is working and what is not working, and to be very real with yourself about it, right? Yesterday, one of the things that I remember was that it was a call to be very honest with yourself, being honest with yourself. And I think this is just sort of the universe saying this is the next step of that journey, right? Being very clear with yourself about what it is that you want. And the guide and mentor position is, again, this King of Wands is coming out. Yesterday it came out in the could become kind of a tower if it's not addressed card. So I think that what's really interesting is it kind of shifting into the guide and mentor position. So there's something that the situations that you're in are teaching you. Alternatively, this can mean someone that's coming in that can be a fire sign, so Aries, Leo, Sag, to help you with this journey. Or it could be somebody that's inspiring you to tap into that inner fire that's going to help you process things. Now, the thing that can become a tower if it's ignored, I felt 5 of Pentacles, Swords, and Wands and Cups energy yesterday, but none of them came up. And I'm like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this energy popped out, and it did. It could just be that saying it made it so, but I think that this is really important energy to keep in mind, right? This is very important energy to keep in mind, because this is sort of something getting the best of you. There's something or someone or an energy that's getting the best of you. And the way that I'm almost looking at it is there's just conflict that you feel regret over, remorse over. You're over it, right? You're just over it. And this could be a Saturn lesson that you are needing to integrate lessons without conflict. You're needing to, and it could just be walking away from the idea that in order to have awarenesses or in order to make progress, there needs to be a sense of conflict, because there really does not, right? There really does not. You can go through life and experience things and lessons and all of that with that sense of conflict or without it. It's entirely up to you. It's of your choosing. The reason why I say that this could be a Saturn lesson, and this could also relate to possibly impatience, because patience was in the deck yesterday and in the spread. Finding the hidden blessing, right? Finding the hidden blessing, and the hard to find blessing is the Ally in Disguise card. So I think that this card is an invitation to really take a look at what you're feeling conflicted over. And it could be related to the way that we're managing conflict, the way that conflict is being addressed here, because the 5 of Swords is the conflict card. And the Emperor is in the kind of climactic battle, tension, discovery. And so that is very Emperor energy, very strategic, is Mars energy, first house. Although the eighth house can also represent Mars and Pluto together. But I think that what's interesting to me about this card is that this is related to the battle and the tension, is that there could be a certain way of handling conflict that you're moving away from. And I see that this is, I'm going to address all of this here, but I just wanted to kind of give this aside because the Three of Cups, the Three of Cups is in the, the treasure and fortune after difficulty position here, right? So that this is your fortune after the climactic tension. It could be that you're realizing that there is strategy, there's something strategic and very important and very authoritative and decisive about the way that you were moving in the past, but that it may have caused conflict that if it went unaddressed, it could really cause a tower. It does show here that you're moving through that energy well and in a sense of balance and harmony. So, I mean, 11:11 just came up on the time. So, I mean, it may not be without conflict that you are moving through it, but you are. And there's in the protagonist companion position, I see the star here, which tells me that there's a lot of healing that's available to you and that is taking place, be it behind the scenes or, in like that 5D space in the space above or further, available to you concretely. So I think that this is important to kind of keep in mind to consider too, right? The star card is Aquarius card. So this is the Aquarius card. This is, and Aquarius rules the 11th house, which is very friendship oriented. It's very community oriented. So it could be that this is a way that you have, we at different points in our lives, we're in different communities. And I've experienced it where you sort of grow out of the community that you're in because people make choices and do things and you're no longer compatible with a specific community. And they kind of see that about you. And some communities are amazing about it and others are not, right? So you have to make choices about that. But the choice is maybe that you're moving from a community that is bent and determined towards conflict, and you're moving towards one that is just a lot more harmonious and more in alignment with what you want, your values, and what's most important to you, which is perfect because we all deserve that, right? Sometimes people just really like to bring others down, and that just is how it is, and that's how hierarchies get established, and importance is established in community groups and communities. But I'm getting that you're moving into one that's a little bit more aligned and that is healing and that's allowing you to reach for a sense of peace. Now, the antagonist position here for your companion is the King of Cups, which tells me that you may need to stay in touch with your emotions about the situation. You may need to stay in touch with what's most important to you, with, again, what you value. There's no pentacles here. And for there to be a total absence of pentacles and for this to be more weighted towards swords and, yeah, I guess just swords. And with that air energy and cups too. So there's like a balance, but the pentacles tell me that perhaps you are considering that value and that the absence of the pentacles here is loud. The reason being is that there were so many yesterday, but also when you are out of touch with your emotions, you can't really tell or identify what you value and what's most important to you. Why? Because you're really disconnected from yourself. So I think that the protagonist position here, that if disconnect from your emotions is a companion that can really be something that leads to this conflict, it will be very vital for you today and this week going forward to stay connected to your truth and to stay connected to your emotions so that all of you is accessible for all of the things that this next part of your journey is going to encompass and take you on. Again, the star is such a healing card. This is such a beautiful card to have in this protagonist position because it means that healing is accessible to you, but you also have to want it. You have to want that healing. You have to want that sense of peace, right? Sometimes we say that we want a sense of peace, and then when it comes down to it, we actually don't want that at all. We don't want it because we are not behaving in ways that make us want it. We only want it when we're at that 10 of Swords or 10 of Wands exhaustion moment. But the things that we can do every day, right? The minor arcana, 2 of Swords, 5 of Swords, 3 of Cups, Kings, the court cards too, the minor arcana presence here tells me that when we're reaching for it in the everyday, we really have options as to whether or not we want it. We have decisions about whether or not we want to stay stuck, right? And this is sort of the call position. So the call that is you're being asked to answer to here is whether or not you want the healing, or if the conflict still serves you. Sometimes conflict does serve us because it gives us a sense of identity, right? It's an ego attachment that when we're still in that space where we identify the degree of conflict with the degree of rest that we can then give ourselves, with when we equate conflict with the degree and measure of help that we get, because we don't know how to ask for things that we need, so we turn to conflict as a way to get exhausted about something and then ask for help and then make healthy choices and then be in touch with our emotions. So this could be a process that you're taking where you're choosing to actively embody not any of the sort of lower octaves of the emperor and relinquish control a little bit of situations because you want the harmony. And in order to have the harmony, you do have to give up control. You have to give up that sense of, winning at all costs. You have to give up that sense of manipulating situations to get the outcome that you want, because you have people on your side who are just willing to listen to you. You have people on your side who are willing to just talk to you about it, right? So I think that this is the community that you're kind of moving into and towards, or reaching for at the very least. And that is transforming, right? That you have the Star, the Fool, Death, and Rebirth. These are transformational cards. The World too. So this is definitely a journey that's taking place. One, obviously, this is the spread that I'm doing and the intention that I set to speak to you about. But I think that there is, with this attuned to the call, for this to be the call, and it's saying attune to the call, tune in and turn on. Be very aware. Be very aware of where you may be deceiving yourself or staying willfully unaware of something because it's serving you, right? And this could be the ally in disguise. The ally in disguise is this awareness that you may have when you really look at your habits, right? You don't have to go announcing them. You don't have to go telling everybody you don't have to spill your own tea. But it is important to understand why you do things and why you want what you want and why all of those things work together, right? And how they do to create the habits that you have and the beliefs that you have about yourself. I think that this, the Fool energy is quite beautiful here, because this tells me that there's not only healing taking place, but that you may be taking chances that you didn't before or that you wouldn't before. And taking chances can mean on opportunities that come. It can mean on, healing or events or whatever it is. But I think that the Fool energy is really, it's loud in terms of taking chances on doing things differently that you may not have done before. Right now, I'm just seeing that there's this sort of healing energy that's connecting all of these cards here. I'm going to try and do this. Sometimes this happens and sometimes it does not. But I'm really seeing here that this Five of Swords and Fool energy and the World are really all like what I'm getting is that there's sort of this universal energy that's moving through all of them. You can't really see it because it's blocking it. But there's this energy that's moving through all of them, right? That yellowy type energy, right? And that's the way that this is all connecting is just, it's like these situations aren't necessarily feeding into one another, but they certainly are informing one another. So there is a conflict that you are moving behind. You're putting it to rest. You're putting it to rest and you're starting something new and you're really committing to that new. Sometimes we step through things in Saturn lessons and Saturn returns and things that our Saturn returns have to teach us, but we don't fully step into them because we're not ready and willing to let go of everything that made life comfortable before. And that can really cause conflict. This can be a tower in waiting because we just wait, we hang on and we just stay okay with conflict when, there is so much more that we can reach for. I'm gonna let my cat in. I know. Okay. So I think that this is a call to stay in touch with your emotions, to stay in touch with what you want and not to give up. Don't give up on things that you're passionate about because they feel new or different, right? Doing this stuff, doing this channel, talking about, spiritual, anything, people get really upset and, offended at different times because they, talking spirituality is so like, when you surround yourself with specific people for long enough, they just expect this side of you. And it's to no one's fault that they never get to know other parts of you. especially during the pandemic. But like, I'm just taking a drink of water here. I think it's important to know that you don't owe folks. You don't always owe people explanations. And I think that explaining those things can sometimes do more harm than good, because everyone wants to know the specifics of why you've changed and moved on from something, right? But sometimes explaining it and not doing the decisive thing and just being aware and staying in your power, that can cause the conflict. That can cause tremendous conflict. So I think the call here is to be very clear within yourself about what you want. Be very clear for yourself about what you want, right? 2s are new beginnings cards as well. And the death card is the transformation card, but it also represents Scorpio, who rules the Scorpio rules the 8th house. Sorry, I had a minute there. Rules the 8th house, and the minor arcana version of this is the 10 swords, which represents the ending, and then the 4 aces, which represents the beginnings. So encapsulated in this card, I was saying yesterday that I feel this transformation energy, that there's a transformation taking place in you, and it may not be very clear. You're kind of getting an idea about this change that's taking place because of the prominence of the Aquarius and Uranian energy, especially with the Fool. The Fool is represents Uranus energy, which is the 11th house, and then Aquarius is here, which represents the 11th house, and that they're kind of bookending this conflict, and this is acting as a protagonist, and this is the lesson that you're kind of taking with you after it's all said and done. I'm really getting that there's some Uranian energy, which is sort of innovation and new, but then, you know, highlighted by this death card as well. So there's something that's not clear, right? It's really not clear, but I think that it's becoming clearer to you. I'm hearing Venus and Neptune really loud, so I don't know if that is related to Neptunian placements or Venus placements. Venus rules the 2nd and 7th house with Taurus and Libra, but then Neptune also rules the 12th house, so it could be related to those houses where this is figuring prominently. Where there's a blessing related to things that you're picking up from there, or things that were activated in your chart at that time. I'm liking the spread. It's a tough one, right? It's a tough one. But at the same time, it's not one that doesn't have you in king energy, which is really powerful energy, right? Even if this is a reminder to stay in touch with your emotions, it's because you already embody the king energy. You already are there. You're just needing to remember to stay in touch with those emotions and not to disconnect from them. But the protagonist energy, the healing, is here in your favor as a companion on the journey. It is, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's safe for you to leave conflict behind. It's safe for you to leave conflict behind. There may be a period of time where people don't talk to you, or you lose friends and you are, you know, kind of alone for a while, and it's okay. You know, nobody, if people care that deeply and they want to ruin you or they want to harm you, that says more about them than you, because you doing you really doesn't mean anything in the big scheme of things, as long as you're not harming people. If you're not infringing upon the rights of other people, who the hell cares? Life, again, is super short. And if you're not doing anything to harm other people, you're not doing that in a way that is intentionally taking away from their quality of life, who the hell, like, what the hell what matters? What matters about it? A lot of people want to control other people, and I think that that's where it comes down, what it comes down to. And they may just not say it that way, but again, this is like that winning at all costs card, right? You don't have to buy into that anymore. I don't know who needs to hear that, but you can step away from that, and it will do wonders for your mental health to do so. You know, disconnecting. Don't stay stuck to social media and be judged, or think that people are judging you, or stay in your head about judgment. I'm thinking about judgment because when we get into that judgment energy, Justice was here yesterday, so it wouldn't surprise me if judgment came out this week too. When we get into that judgment energy, we're really in a defensive place. We're in a defensive place because whether we feel like we're being judged or we're judging other people, that's sort of where this energy starts, because as soon as that judgment hits, then we have to start to defend something. Well, what are we defending? We're defending the image and ego that we had, right? The Emperor energy, the lower octaves of the Emperor is very controlling, control freak. Well, controlling. I don't like freak. just because it's inaccessible language. But I think that there's a control aspect here that you can just step away from. It's okay. I feel like I'm giving this like motivational speech about like owning your life and just standing in it fully. But I think that some people really don't want you to, because they value the person that gives all the time. They value having power over you. They value having a sense of control, when realistically you're entitled to a happy life as well. I don't know if you need to remember that, but you are entitled to a happy life. You're entitled to peace. And sometimes that involves disconnecting from people who are just, all they know is this, and that's okay. Don't feel like you owe anyone anything, because then that's also sort of an indebted mentality that you bring, and it's really hard to feel abundant or to attract jobs or situations or projects where you feel that flow and that sense of abundance, because you feel like you're indebted to everyone. You're apologizing for everything. You have to basically apologize for kind of a bit of your existence, which is, I don't know who that's for. That's a really low vibe. If you're in that place, I recommend getting out of it, even if it's hard or challenging, and doing it to the best of your ability. Because when you're in that place, it's really hard to access healing. It's hard for healing to come to you, because if you're constantly indebted to everyone, you never really live your life. You never really live your life. It always belongs to somebody else. It always belongs to somebody else, because you're always at a deficit of power. And I'm not talking about power over other people. I'm talking about empowerment in your own life to make decisions for you and do what's best for you, right? You're always at that place of operating from the negative. You know, you're always overdrawn. Your bank accounts, your emotional bank accounts overdrawn, always. So you feel like you need to win at all costs. You feel like you need to output this energy in ridiculous ways. And even if you're not an emperor, even if you're not an emperor, and this is your conflict, is becoming the emperor or not, about boundaries, I see a lot of peace and healing on the other side of it. Do you have all of the friends in the world in this card? No, but you don't need 400 friends. You know, like, you need probably about 2 or 3 solid relationships. That's it. I don't know who has time for much more. And the relationships that I have, I really want to invest in deeply, right? So if for a time you only have 2 to 3 really, really good friends that are steady and reliable and solid for you, let that be enough, right? Don't let Instagram or social media fool you into thinking that you need to have like handfuls of friends. You can have community, but when it comes to like your people who encourage you and call you because they're excited for opportunities that you got, or they're pumped for it, and they're not trying to talk you out of it or talk down to you about them. They're not trying to take away from your joy. They add to it. They're excited for you, right? The way that I've come to understand that you can tell narcissists from others is the fact that they can't be happy for other people. Because if they're just happy for other people, then it means that they're not the most important person in the room. And that's very, I'm not trying to label people with the narcissistic label and say, bleh, that's who this is. I think that it's just important to recognize these behaviors, because we can often blame ourselves and go inward and sit in guilt and shame and doubt and judgment towards ourselves if we don't really take a look at how these energies are showing up and say, no, that's a narcissistic energy. Is that person narcissistic? No, not necessarily, but that behavior is, and that can really disconnect you from your energy and make you kind of turn inward. So this 5 of Swords energy can turn inward at yourself. And this may not be the win at all costs energy necessarily, but I'm reading that energy from here. So I think that Tuesday may be, like today, it might be a bit of a day of understanding different things about conflict and how you've related to conflict and how it's been grounded in a series of everyday behaviors and actions, right? The Virgo full moon was about daily routines and habits and kind of grounding things in that everyday energy. And I'm getting that there's something here to that. Like, how have you grounded conflict and prioritized conflict over peace in the everyday? Is that something that you've done? So that's this here in terms of signs. So I see Scorpio, this is more Uranian. So I guess Aquarius, air energy for sure with the Fool. The Star is Aquarius energy. The Emperor is Aries. This is also Aries season. So this could be a lesson that you're learning kind of throughout Aries season. For somebody, that could be a storyline there. The King of Cups can represent water signs. a little bit more Pisces energy. King of Wands can represent fire signs, but I've read it as Sagittarius before, though with the way the author has done the card here, this could be Leo as well. So definite fire sign energy. So this could also be you, right? This could just be you recognizing things around, if this is a birthday that celebrates or is celebrated around a Saturn return, or you're kind of, I think about Saturn returns as every 29 years, but then also 5 years before and then 5 years after. You kind of have that, that energy of ramping up to it and then kind of easing out of it as well. So that's something important to keep in mind too, right? This could be a process that's happening where you're just reevaluating things, and that's okay. And this is a lot contained in a day, I realize, but this may be a message that carries you through April, May, June, July, longer, right? But just remembering that there's also this card here. You've won the lottery. Make room for wonderment. It's really hard to feel wonder, and it's really hard to be curious when you're in this energy. Right? It really is. It's just, it's hard to carry that. It's hard to be in wonder when you're really damn defensive. Because when you're defensive, you're also having to prove everything. You're having to prove yourself, your thoughts, your ideas. You're having to prove that you're not X, Y, and Z thing that people say you are. You're having to prove that you deserve. You're having to prove. And all that does, again, is it puts your energetic bank account into a depletion, which will eventually affect your actual bank account, because it reflects a value that you hold about yourself. And how do you think you're worth it? Are you important? Right? So with all of this being said, I'm going to pull a Miracles Now deck card by Gabrielle Bernstein. So Spirit, can you just give me a little bit of an affirmation or affirmative guidance? I show up for myself in the world. Yeah. Not to be like literally reading this, but like I show up for myself in the world. I feel like that's what you're moving through right now, is showing up for yourself. Is showing up for yourself. Okay, my presence is my power. And obsessing over the outcome of a relationship gets in the way. Instead, I let go and allow. Now, this obsessing over the outcome of a relationship can be romantic. It can be friendship. It can be work-related. It can be relationship. I read as just sort of anything, like it's interpersonal. It's not necessarily just romantic. So it could be that you're, in this conflict energy about making sure people see you in a way that you want to be seen. But sometimes people just don't, and they won't because they can't, and it has nothing to do with you, right? And so it's important to make that distinction so that you can get a move on, right? So that you can get a move on. The King of Wands isn't necessarily a movement card, but I see that as passion, which does get momentum going at least. And then I'm going to pull a card from the Notes from the Universe on Love and Connection deck by Mike Dooley. All right, a couple. So I got 3 here, which is fine. It's a good way to start the day. Ooh, karma is on your side. If you could read all the minds that I read, hear all the prayers that I hear, and beat all the hearts that I beat, I wonder if you'd even believe how often you're thought of, talked about, and fallen in love with. It's payback time. Kinda. I think that we don't often, this is also the effect of being in this energy often, right? Now in this spread, this is the, could turn into a tower. It's an inconvenience that turns into a tower if you just let it sit and fester. If you just let it sit and fester. So I think one of the lines that I really like about this card is, I wonder if you'd even believe how often you're thought of, talked about, and fallen in love with. It's payback time. For me, I think that this represents, and I've gone through this too, where like you go through a hard time and then you just immediately assume that no one could ever possibly love you, or no one could ever see your worth again. And you really have to kind of clamber out of that and detach yourself from people who are not going to see your worth and who wait for negative things to happen to you, or get defensive, or steal your ideas, or take from you. Like all of these different ways that people take from our energy that just depletes us, right? I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who reflect the light back to you. Right? When you go through a really hard time and you go through it for long enough, you really aren't just disconnected from your healing, but your emotions too. You're disconnected from your emotions and your ability to see that other people are feeling in their full energy about you, on opportunities, on relationships, on friendships. They are genuinely excited to be around you and to be in your presence and to hear jokes that you make or to experience the light, right? They want your light. They want to know what that's like to stand in the light that you give out. So just remember that, like, I wonder if you'd even believe how often you're thought of, talked about, and fallen in love with. It's payback time. It is impossible. It is impossible that people hate you as much as you might think. It is impossible that people dislike you as much as you might think. A lot of the time we worry about all of these things because, and especially after the pandemic, being so disconnected from stuff, it really, don't let those worries run away with you or take away from you. Because realistically speaking, you are thought of well. You're thought of well, right? And if you're not, then find new people, because that's what it is about, right? It's about, are you going to punish yourself by being around people that don't honor you, that don't respect you, that don't care, that when you need something, they just disappear, right? That's really what it comes down to. I had to make those decisions and they were really hard. They were hard because my friend group was big and I loved it and I loved socializing. I'm an introvert, but I also liked connecting with people when I did. And I'm an Aquarian sun moon, so community has been really important to me. There comes a time though where you have to understand that, like, if you need help and it's really bad, people just disappear on you and you're really in moments where you really need them. And it happens often enough. They're giving you information about what they value. And maybe it's just about capacity, maybe it's not, but you do have to take a stand at some point and say, this is actually what I deserve. And you may not be at a place to be able to give that right now, and that's okay. But I'm going to invest my energy in other things. And you don't have to have that conversation, because doing so can be this kind of energy, but in a super manipulative way. Sometimes it's just about coming into that awareness within yourself so that you can be free, so that you can heal, so that you can start to redirect your energy, and you can start to build habits and thoughts that really do empower you. So that you have options is meaningful. Rock on. I wish I could make just 2 wishes. If I could make just 2 wishes, I'd wish I could somehow convey to you the profound depths of my gratitude for every moment of your life. I'd also wish that you could somehow know of your unimaginable importance, just as you now are, to the lives of so very many. And of course, I'd wish for even more wishes. Oh, shoot. You were such a good idea. The universe. You were such a good idea. I don't know who needs to hear that. That's beautiful, though. You were such a good idea. They chose you. A lot of self-esteem cards here, so there could be some work, just as an aside, related to sacral energy center and healing energy. So they chose you. You might not readily believe this. It might even spook you a bit, but there are those who chose this very lifetime, in large part knowing you'd be there. Now that's what we call a reputation. That is just really beautiful energy to think about. I'm tearing up slightly at this. You ever have days where you're just in your Pisces and it just, you start to tear up at like everything, someone sneezes and you're just, but just this idea that, imagine how much kinder we would be to one another if imagine how much light we would see in one another. Imagine how much more we could do with our time here if we really understood that we all came here to be in one another's lives. We chose this. We chose this. Why? Because we wanted this healing. We wanted the peace. We wanted all of the good. And I know that it doesn't come all the time. That's, magical fantasy thinking. But just this line, I'm going to read it again. You might not readily believe this. It might even spook you a bit. But there are those who chose this very lifetime, in large part knowing you'd be there. Now that's what we call a reputation. So people are in your life today and this week because they chose to be here. They chose to know you, and standing in your power. Your presence is your power. It's okay to let the healing in and to let transformation into. Don't be afraid to take leaps, because this is the journey back. This is the return, right? People in your life are a treasure. So just remember that too. Oh, happy Tuesday, my friends. I hope that you have a wonderful day ahead of you, and that all of the light and love that I feel in my heart for you, and all of the compassion that I'm holding in it, that you feel as well. I am sending you so much of that light and love. Have a great day.